Joe Tessitore.
Hey. What is up? What is up, YouTube boxing family? It is K right here, and I'm back with another video for y'all today. Happy Labor Day to all that are watching this video. And yeah, man, let's get right into it, bro. Um, I got a pretty good video for y'all today, and I'm gonna give you my point of view on some gaming ideas, and I wanted to talk about um the possibility of seeing another Fight Night champion boxing video game. So before I do that, be sure to hit the like button, do what you gotta do, and let's get this party started. um this should be a pretty good topic to talk about. I got this YouTuber here, Boxing Fight Simulations. Please go check him out. He has some pretty good fire content, just doing Fight Night champion, boxing simulations. So I like that out of him. He does some really good funny content. Well, good boxing what if, matchup, content. So I like that out of him. And yeah, I think he's a pretty good YouTuber with what he does. For those of you that are wanting to, take a look at, certain, YouTubers of that particular regard. So yeah, let's get right into it. Let's talk about Fight Night Champion and why this game was a very, very good game. Um, a lot of people really enjoy this game simply because the good thing about Fight Night, this game was a very good defensively strategized game. You had to be smart in Fight Night. You can't just go in just trying to knock somebody out. Um, EA Fight Night games always had a pretty good reputation for how the coding, within certain functions of like how you threw like a punch or how the logic of certain punches go, depending on how everything is being strategized within a fight, is really good. And you know, that's what I enjoy out of Fight Night. But before I get into that, be sure to share the video, like the video, do what you got to do, and yeah, like I'm pretty sure that I had already said that, but I just wanted to put that out there for y'all, just to continue to support the grind and support the channel. So let's just go back to what I was basically stating. This game is a good game, and the problem is that Fight Night had good mechanics. Like, don't get it twisted. This game did really good starting from at the very beginning with Fight Night, round one, where I actually enjoyed that game when it first came out in the early 2000s. Other boxing games that were in competition to Fight Night, I mean, for the most part, like my other favorite game that I really enjoy playing, which is a really good game, it was called Knockout Kings 2001. That game was pretty good. That was another EA game, but that game actually had a really good, fighting gameplay strategy with how you threw punches. But the problem with that game, that was like more of like a, how should I say, that was more of like a boxing arcade style game. And granted, it was a good fun game to watch. But the problem with that game is like it doesn't give you like the strategy of like how to use your fighter, how to be fundamentally gifted with the fighter, how to think about what you're doing with like a punch, and how to be more defensively technical, offensively, pressured, or like basically anything to that particular manner. So yeah, that's pretty much like the one thing that Fight Night, did well compared to let's just say Knockout Kings or any other boxing game. Because like for the most part, most boxing games that really came out within like the modernized generation of gaming usually started out with EA Fight Night, and that was that's what made Fight Night a pretty good game per se. So that's like the only reason why, how should I say, Fight Night has a pretty good reputation with what they do. Because originally, like, with like, the gameplay that you see now with Fight Night, this game was okay, but it wasn't like the absolute best. It wasn't like, oh, well, this game is like the best way to play boxing games, and therefore you should ultimately respect it. No. Fight Night had its faults, especially from like the PS2 days. Like, you know, any punch that you threw at your opponent kind of felt pretty slow. The punches didn't feel like actual real shots to be thrown effectively. And, you didn't really get like a good accuracy with throwing like a proper shot. You had to like set up like your shots, like effectively, which, I get it. That's boxing because it's like boxing's supposed to be the sport where, you have to actually use your skill, and then when you use your skill, then that kind of shows like the separation with who's like a really smart fighter or not. So, I would say like Fight Night Champion is probably one of like the best Fight Night games. Hold on, let me pause this. All right, I'm back. So yeah, based off of what I was trying to state is that Fight Night Champion was probably one of like the best Fight Night games to play, because this game was very accurate with how the gameplay should be. And there was like a few like broken characters here and there, obviously with like guys like Mike Tyson and all that, but it wasn't like that entirely bad. That's one thing that I'll say that Fight Night has done pretty well with. Now, obviously, with today's gameplay with Undisputed is pretty decent, but I would say Undisputed is nowhere near Fight Night Champion. So, in regards to Fight Night, I think EA has a pretty good ceiling to bring this gameplay. Well, to bring this game back into the franchise. The only reason why they're not able to really do that is simply because they have a contract with the UFC, where they're making UFC games, in particular. And yeah, honestly, like the problem with that is that they're not really able to kind of go into that mode of like wanting to make a boxing game anytime soon. But I think the problem with EA is kind of more like they're kind of sticking with like what's working with the company model, where, if they're going to be doing fighting games specifically for what's going to sell them money, then EA is just going to go out of it their way and say, well, you know what, Fight Night, Champion 2 can be put on a hold, but for now we're just going to work on UFC games, which, personally with me, I think UFC games are just terrible. Like, I mean, they're cool and all, but it's like, at the end of the day, I don't think anybody really cares for UFC. I think a lot of people just kind of play it just to kind of like feel entertained, but I think that the boxing world really wants a boxing Fight Night game to come back, because like the problem with Fight Night is that this game had a pretty good career mode. You were able to kind of like work your way to the top. It wasn't that hard to level up your character. All you had to do was just kind of like work your way up to be, intelligent with like your stats, with like your character, know what your style is. And then on top of that, you just had to have like a proper mindset with making sure what you needed to do with your character doesn't like affect your career long term. So like if you have like a character that you want to be more of like a power puncher, you had like your stats set in an archetype where if you want to like, well, it wasn't like entirely set like that, but like how should I say, the upgrading system in Fight Night was actually pretty fine, because the attributes were basically set in different sections. Like, do you want to increase like a fighter's power? Do you want to increase a fighter's stamina? Or do you want to basically spend points on whatever you want? And if you wanted to kind of upgrade like your like your skill, overall cap, you can kind of like spend points. Well, like I forgot how you had like how you had to do it. You had to go to like the EA store and buy like these things called, I guess, like skill cap points, where they basically increase like your skill. But I don't think that really made any sense, because it was like useful, because like you basically earned it by like winning like your amateur tournament. And if you win like the boxing amateur tournament, you would be able to kind of increase like your stats, for your character. So therefore, that would make you like a way better fighter. But I mean, overall, like, it wasn't really necessary because, it wasn't that difficult for you to kind of like upgrade your character, develop the type of style that you wanted for your fighter. So like for instance, like if I wanted to like bring back Floyd Mayweather and start his career all over again, I can make Floyd Mayweather into like, let's just say like a power puncher or just like a pure boxer, semi puncher. So the good thing like about it was like you could set up the style however you wanted, but the thing is that you just had to be smart with the points that you got from the XP that you got from training. And the good thing like about Fight Night Champion is like especially with career mode, like the training modes were actually pretty fun. Like the good thing about that was that you were able to spar people. Well, you were able to like spar like spar like opponents, or you were able to like work the heavy bag, or you were able to do like reflexes with the speed. Like I guess like I forgot what type of bag that is. I think that's pretty much not the speed bag, but it's basically, they put like a piece of rope on it, and like you have to like move like your head to kind of earn points, for that. So I actually like that a lot. You were also able to do how should I say heavy bag combinations. Also, you had like this one drill that I really enjoyed where you have to push like the heavy bag all the way over to like the end of the line, and basically what you did is that that the heavy bag. Hold on, let me pause this for y'all. All right, I'm back. So, yeah, like with like one of like the heavy bag drills that you had, there was this one drill where you had to push like the heavy bag from a starting point to the end of what the other side of like your gym, and if you did that, you actually earn more points. But as you start earning more points, you start getting more XP. And the good thing like about that was that that was really helpful, and effective for you to kind of build like your character, because like the more points that you got for XP, that's good for your fighter to kind of like basically get more overall experience points to kind of add onto like your attributes. So then that makes you like a way better fighter, like going into like tougher fights. That's one thing that I really liked out of Fight Night, because once you like reach your 99 overall, I think what they should have done is like they should have had like certain like traits, kind of like what they do in NBA 2K, and they should have given you like certain like fighter archetype skill traits. Like if you're like a power puncher and you get like one big punch off of like a fighter, that gives you like the ability to like get knockouts a lot faster into into like the later rounds. Or if you're like a pure boxer puncher, very defensively skilled, you have like a better ability to like read punches coming at you, and then you're able to like bob and weave and actually catch punches a lot quicker, making forcing your like opponents to actually be more aware that be more cautious of like them throwing shots at you, because they can't really do anything. So I think personally, that's a good thing, for Fight Night, because Fight Night Champion, if they had that where they kind of took those pages out of NBA 2K, that would have been really good for the game. And another good thing that Fight Night actually had was that I'll say that the movement was pretty good in the game. Kind of like what you see with like Floyd Mayweather. When you're moving, in the ring, with him. It kind of gives you like a good like strategy of like how to throw like your punches. Granted, it wasn't like all the way the best, because this is more of like an arcade style type of fighting game, but it was pretty decent. You know what I'm saying? Like it was good enough where if you wanted to sidestep to the left or to the right, you were able to kind of do that. The one thing that this game should have had was like yeah, like they should have had the feints. If they brought in like the feints, in this game, I think Fight Night would have been a really good game overall. I think the movement was pretty decent. The punches were actually really smooth. Like anytime that you hit somebody with like a big shot, it actually kind of like gave you like that momentum feel, where like if you landed like a big shot onto a really tough like opponent, you're able to actually kind of have like that signifying factor that shows you that you're getting closer to knocking out your like opponent. So like I would say that's like a really good thing that Fight Night has done, where they're able to kind of give you that incentive to kind of be smart in the ring, but then on top of that, you're actually like thinking while you're making those choices. Um, Another good thing that Fight Night actually has is the customization. I think Fight Night did a really good job with this game for the customization. The one thing that I kind of wish that they had better was like the shoes. I think that the shoes could have been better, but on top of that, everything else was pretty good. That the robe, that the robe customization wasn't like it was okay, but it wasn't it wasn't like the almighty best. They had like some EA Sports exclusive content that you had to buy, in the EA store, which was pretty decent, but they gave you like the Manny Pacquiao robe. They gave you like the Muhammad Ali robe, the Mike Tyson, I guess like cloth over, like, I forgot what that thing's called. I want to say that was like a tank top type of thing. So that was pretty good. They had like a whole bunch of stuff. Um, I kind of wish that they gave you like more customization with like, the robe alone, where like if you wanted to like put your name over the robe on the front and kind of put some logos, into it for like customization logos, that would be pretty good. I would definitely enjoy that. Um, also like another thing that Fight Night didn't have was that um you should have been able to like customize like your boxing gloves however you wanted to. So like based off of like the manufacturer, you can kind of customize, what type of gloves that you want. They should have kind of like given you the ability to like do a custom made glove, and like it doesn't matter what brand that it is, you can turn it into Clado Reyes. But then what you could do with like your gloves is that you can kind of like brand it to kind of put like your own name to it. Hold on, let me. All right, I'm back. Yeah, so basically what they should have done with like the glove customization is that they should have given you the ability to kind of like customize your glove, and you can kind of like put like your name to it. So like don't you know how with like Canelo, he has his own brand sponsorship, product for No Boxing No Life. You could do something like that where you could say no boxing, no boxing, no future, or something like that. You can kind of put like your own spin to it, but that would be really cool if Fight Night gave you the ability to kind of customize your own glove, however however you wanted. So I think that's one thing that that they should have done. The roster was okay. I mean, it wasn't like the almighty greatest, but it was pretty fun. I kind of wish that for the legendary old school fighters that they didn't kind of like rip you off for you having to like pay for like Sugar Ray Robinson and all these other like old school fighters. Like I didn't like the fact that that EA wanted like basically try to make you pay for old school fighters when they should already be in the game. The good thing for that made up for it, if you didn't want to pay for it, was that you were able to kind of download fighters from the Boxer. Basically it was like a database of like basically like Cyberface created boxing fighters. So that was always like the good thing like about Fight Night. So like if I didn't want to pay for like Floyd Mayweather and all these other old school fighters that were brought into like the game as a DLC, like let's just say Jack Johnson, or let's just say Charlie Burley, which Charlie Burley was never on a DLC roster or DLC content. I think it was Jack Johnson, and who else? I think George Foreman, but the younger version of him. He was offered, he was offered in Fight Night Champion as DLC. It was decent, but it wasn't like the greatest DLC, because it's like like older George Foreman was on the roster, but if you wanted to get younger George Foreman, you had to pay extra money for that, and I just found that I found that shit to be like a ripoff overall. But the good thing about the boxing uh, boxer share, I think that's what it was called, it was like a free downloadable file sharing system where you were able to just download whatever fighter that you wanted. So like, let's just say if you wanted to get Floyd Mayweather, as like a free downloadable copy of him, you can do that instead of having to pay DLC money for Floyd Mayweather. So I think that was really good. If you wanted to kind of customize him, where you can give him hair, maybe make him into young Floyd. Like, I mean, that's also good as too. Yeah, that's also good as well. Um, there's other characters that you could do. You could there were like other characters that were like available for you to download. I've seen some pretty funny characters where some people make like, I don't know, they make characters that are like super dark skin, and like they kind of make them look into like I guess like alien looking fighters, which was kind of funny. Um, I saw one character that was like the Incredible Hulk, and you know, like basically funny enough with the Incredible Hulk that was like available as like a downloaded, created character. He unfortunately he wasn't his skin wasn't wasn't green, but it was like all white, where he had like some green hair, to kind of to kind of like go into like his I guess character style. So that was pretty cool. I mean, a lot of people created like a lot of pretty cool ideas. I've downloaded some pretty funny fighters. That were like kind of wild. Like, I downloaded Joker. I downloaded Batman. Some people created like, I don't know, Deathstroke from DC Universe. That was actually pretty funny. I saw one guy create like a Superman, boxing character. That was pretty funny. I mean, overall, the Creative Fighter, boxer shared database was pretty good, and I kind of wish that was kind of brought into other games, especially Undisputed. That game should have had Creative Fighter boxer share. Hold on. All right, I'm back. So yeah, like I said about other games like Undisputed should have gave you the ability to kind of download fighters similar to what Fight Night did. And when you download the fighters, you're able to kind of do whatever you did. The one thing that I hated like about Undisputed is that with Undisputed, your created fighters from your from your My Career or from your boxing career mode, that was actually used as like an actual extra save file. So it wasn't separated from your career mode saves. That was actually used as like an extra slot for your created boxers. So if you wanted to create more boxers and you didn't have like enough space for those fighters, you actually had to delete your career saves in order to make another fighter, which I found that to be really stupid, and I don't understand why Undisputed or Steel City Interactive actually did that. I think that was really dumb and very stupid on their behalf to have something like that. So I personally did not like that at all. They should have increased like the file. Well, I guess like the file size capacity of like how many fighters you can put onto the roster. It should have been at least, I'd probably say maybe like 50. Well, how should I say? Personally, with me, if I wanted to have like a huge big roster, like give me at least maybe like 200 slots or maybe like 150 slots. I would have been fine with 2 to 300 slots, and then after that, that's pretty much it. I mean, you don't have I'm sorry, like, you don't have to make it super duper wild with like a roster, but give me the ability to kind of create certain roster file saves where I can have like my saves to be separated from my career mode that doesn't interfere with like that doesn't interfere with my actual roster. And then let's just say if I want to use that created fighter from my boxing My Career, I can have that created fighter to go directly into my main roster as a secondary option, where it gives me the ability to transfer that file over to my created roster. So like if I want to customize that fighter and do whatever I want with that fighter, I have the ability to do that now instead of just having the fighter go directly into my main save roster, and then that's already like a wasted slot that I could have used for a different fighter. Also, another thing about Fight Night that's obviously good for any boxing game was that the clinching was really good. Undisputed used to have clinching, but then for some stupid reason, Steel City Interactive decided to get rid of it, which I don't understand why they would do that. I think they're pretty stupid for doing that at all. Well, doing that, in the first place. And I think Steel City should really look into the mirror and understand that's not really intelligent to do that because now players that play anybody online, all they're gonna do is just go out of their way and just be ultimately stupid, having to spam power shots, and it's basically, there's no way to force a reset onto somebody when they're getting, let that big shot off of you, and then you're able to kind of get that little breather. So I think that's really stupid for for the developers to get rid of the ability to use clinching at all. I think that's not really smart at all, and I think Steel City Interactive is doing something really stupid in that regard. By having to restrict players to actually clinch versus in Fight Night, clinching is actually useful. So therefore, if you are hurt, you're able to kind of force a reset. So therefore, you can get a breather, and then that gives you the ability, as the fighter that did get hurt, to have the ability to hurt your opponent after you force a reset to to regain your stamina, and also make the fight more interesting. You know what I'm saying? Also, one good thing that Fight Night also has is that the defensive reads are actually really good in this game. They're not super duper almighty, supreme perfect, but they're actually pretty decent. You're able to kind of bob and weave and reflex your punches a lot faster in the game versus an Undisputed. Undisputed did not give you that at all. You had to have a certain trait to kind of move your head around a lot faster, and I didn't really like that at all. I found that to be really stupid and kind of broken for the game. So I mean, overall, that's something that they should have fixed a long time ago for Undisputed. So therefore, the gameplay doesn't feel stiff, and you're able to kind of use a proper strategy, to win. Also, with the roster, the one thing that I hated, about Undisputed, the one thing that I hated about Fight Night that didn't have what Undisputed had. Hold on, let me pause. I hate these ads. All right, I'm back. Yeah, so back to what I was initially stating. The one thing I wish, that I wish Fight Night had, that Undisputed has, was the female fighters. I think that's one thing that EA did really bad with, because they should have brought in all the females, you know fighters like Clarissa Shields, Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, Alicia Baumgartner, bring in Michaela Mayer, Sinisa Estrada, anybody, it doesn't matter, but kind of give that same regard for creating female fighters too. If you want to make a custom made female fighter, you could do that. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's just how I see it, man. Like, I think Fight Night did a really major disservice by not giving, let the fans the ability to kind of do a female fighter creation slash, create a fighter, career mode type of option for the fans. Because I mean, I get it at this time frame, this came out in 2011, if I'm not to be mistaken. So I mean, female boxing was not at the big, it wasn't at the biggest peak, but female boxing was slowly growing. but it's not like, boxing, for the females couldn't have been in any other game, because it clearly was, especially games like, Knockout Kings, Ready to Rumble 1 and 2. And then there were like, some other games like Black and Bruise boxing. I mean, those are like arcade, games that are driven. But I mean, as far as like real traditional boxing simulation games, the only real game that was actually out there that had, you know, actual female rostered fighters was Knockout Kings 2001. Yeah, that was like the only game that actually had that. So I mean, overall, that was like fine, but the like pretty much like my whole argumentation is that that the female boxing could have easily sparked a massive audience for the sport, where all these female fighters would have had their name bigger, and it would have made the sport a lot better, where you would have had more women, get that spotlight a lot quicker, and then that would have followed on, with the men that can like sell those names, next, to them. So like Clarissa Shields next to Floyd Mayweather, would be a great sell to the audience, and people would enjoy paying money to see Clarissa be in a fighting game. And also another good thing that Fight Night did good with the customization is that you were able to kind of customize like your like your physical build, with like a fighter. If you wanted to have like your fighter be tall, lanky, to be super athletic, you could do something like that. Or you could kind of do something where, if you wanted to have like your fighter to be super fat, but you actually had some, like you actually had power. Let's just say if you were like a fat heavyweight, and you had like super knockout power, like I mean stuff like that, existed in Fight Night. And it was fun, like Fight Night gave you the ability to have fun in the game. The hairstyles, in the game was pretty good. You were able to customize like the facial hair, which was pretty good. um I say like the one thing that they could have done better with the body features is kind of like, customize, I guess, like the I guess like the frame, out of like a fighter. Like, I don't know, like personally, if they could have, made something a little bit better with, with the archetypes, with like how a fighter's built from, I guess, like the strength and physical attributes per se. I mean, overall, Fight Night was pretty good with just giving you like a good character that had pretty decent, archetype build. So, I mean, that was pretty good overall. I mean, I think what Fight Night could have done better was just making sure that they gave you more abilities to customize your character with like the accessories, with like the gloves. You were able to kind of put your name on your trunks, which was pretty cool. That was always like a good thing with Fight Night. I also kind of wish with the trunks, you were able to kind of have different style out of trunks. Let's just say if I wanted to use, Manny Pacquiao, driven trunks. Okay, hold on, let me pause again. All right, I'm back. So, yeah, I was basically stating that, um, yeah, like let's just say if you wanted to use like Manny Pacquiao level trunks, for your style, you can like edit those trunks out, and you could put like your own twists to those trunks, and then that could be used for like a male fighter or a female fighter. And then obviously you could have like different types of trunks. You could have like super short trunks, or you could have like gladiator driven trunks that kind of give you like that gladiator, barbaric look. I don't know. I mean, there's so many things that you could do, but it's like, why not give us like more options to kind of like do more with the trunks, Maybe give us some Mortal Kombat style trunks where you're able to kind of put like a combat, level twists, to it. I mean, that would be pretty cool. I mean, there's so many things that Fight Night could have done, but I think like for the next Fight Night game, just to close things out, If there's ever to be another Fight Night game, we need to have more we as fans need to have more ability to kind of like customize our character. Obviously, have females in it. Um, I think that the mechanics could be improved a lot better with the defensive, reads to make sure that if you're like super gifted with like a fighter's, skill and trait, those traits can kind of carry over, in a fight later on, in the deeper rounds. I think that's something that Fight Night can easily bring to the table. I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't really see out of, well, out of this game, in particular. So, I mean, if Fight Night actually ends up, doing some major improvements with with the accuracy, of your punches being landed, or something to do with like having like a trait system similar to like NBA 2K, that would be pretty cool. Like definitely what they need to do is they should give you the ability to kind of clinch and basically give you the ability to hold while you're hurt. And let's just say if you're like about to get knocked out, give you the ability to like hold while you're hurt while you're moving. Like do something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, there's so many ways to kind of make like the game good. But I mean, like personally with me, like not much really has to be changed. I would say like for the blocking system, there should be like a certain like function within like the blocking system where like if you like I think personally they should probably go back to like old school blocking where like, if you block like a certain punch, you have to like kind of move like your arms around of like where that punch is going to be landed. So like I'll just kind of say, for example, let that right hook that Canelo just actually landed, well, try to land on Floyd. You should have the ability to kind of do the same thing what you did back in Fight Night, Fight Night round, like, round three, where, if the opponent is trying to hit you, at a certain part of your face, and if you block correctly, then that slows the next punch that your opponent throws, and then you're able to kind of throw something back at them to actually hurt them. So, like personally for me, I just think that's just I just think that's just like a better way of kind of giving boxing fans like that extra defensive mechanic because like obviously that the blocking system was pretty decent in Fight Night Champion, but it could have been way better where you were able to kind of like function the motion of that punch, and then you were able to kind of whiff punish a like let's just say like a button masher that likes to throw power punches a lot, and then if you block correctly to like flawless block it, then you're able to kind of just hurt your like opponent a lot harder. So I mean, personally for me, I think Fight Night Champion, overall out of 10, if I were to rate it, was like a solid like 8.9 out of 10. This game was good. This game just needed to have some fundamental tweaks to be added to the game. And overall, like I truly enjoyed playing this game. They just needed to work on a couple things, and I think Fight Night Champion would have been a really good bestseller type of game, in which it really was. I mean, like that the game was good, that the storyline was pretty good. Um, I will say if they ever have like a storyline campaign for for like a boxer's campaign for like a story, they should kind of give you like a male or female type of side for it. I mean, that would be pretty cool. But I mean, overall, like I wouldn't really mind for that. I mean, I rather just be given career mode and just have like your little male story, like male fighter or female fighter, custom made rosters, and then also give us the ability to like create certain roster save files. So therefore, if you want to have like a file that's like all female roster or all male roster, but let's just say if you want to have like a legendary roster of like Muhammad Ali's era, like you could do something like that. Or let's just say you want to do Sugar Ray Robinson's era, like like personally for me, there's so much competitive, opportunities to make Fight Night into like a really good popularized game. And I think Fight Night is there. People just need to see what, what Fight Night can actually be capable of doing. Hold on. All right, I'm back. But yeah, like overall, what the consumers and the fans need to, you know, basically see the opportunities that EA is able to do. And I think EA has like a lot of good resources to build Fight Night, Champion 2, because, if this game ever does come out, in the near future, um I would say for Fight Night Champion 2, that would probably have to come out within maybe like the next year or so, cuz I'm pretty sure EA, they probably have developed, the game. It's just that, they probably just they probably haven't really worked on it too much because they've been focusing on other games like UFC. But let's just say, if at the UFC it's pretty much done and over with soon in the future, that could very well happen. I could really see that being a possibility. So I don't know. I think overall, Fight Night has the ability to make a huge comeback, but I would say, within this current time frame of where Undisputed is at, I don't really think Fight Night is really gonna be making a comeback anytime soon. But if I would probably give myself a good guess on it, I'm gonna probably say within like the next year or so. I would say EA probably has like their investments made for Fight Night Champion, or just like another boxing game in general. And the game can easily come back. It's just that I think like due to EA's their like their contractual ties with the UFC, they're kind of just focusing on doing UFC content. But I'd say like when their contract is finally satisfied and up, which I want to say EA, they're pretty much done with the UFC with content developing for them, because I know like certain YouTubers like LX Dark Sniper, he was talking about it and he was saying like EA has the ability to make Fight Night right now, but it's just that they're kind of like basically they're just focusing on what's really doing good for money wise. So I don't blame them, because it's like EA is doing a good job. It's just that for us boxing fans that want to see the next boxing game, knowing that Undisputed isn't really giving us like a really good boxing game, but it's actually decent. I personally wouldn't want to really be waiting anytime soon for like another boxing game. So I would say for the most part, if EA comes into the picture, makes a good boxing game, then I'll be happy for that. But if not, I would like to see like another company get into it. Like I don't know who that company would be. Maybe like Respawn, Entertainment, that probably developed Call of Duty. They could probably make a good boxing game. But like personally for me, I would say wait until everything comes into play. I think EA is going to do it because EA is a really good, successful company that does a lot of good job with a lot of whole different genres of video games. So yeah, I think EA is going to be bringing back Fight Night Champion 2, and when we see another Fight Night game come out, then everybody's gonna get hyped for it. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Let me know what y'all think. I'll be giving out my initial thoughts on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. There were some leaks that were coming out off of that, so I'll give you guys my take on that of how I feel, about the franchise. So yeah, I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Hope you had a great Labor Day, and I will come back with more content. And hopefully, the holiday season will also be good for you guys as well. So thank you guys for watching. More content coming soon. This is K Rod signing out, and goodbye.